Hey, everybody. Whitney here with a Divine Feminine solo episode. And this episode is actually also a bit of a personal life update that I wanted to share with my audience. So, in order to do so, I'm combining the theme of today's solo episode with my current life situation / update. So, the title of this episode is Taking the Big Call. The big call meaning one of those bigger call to actions from the universe, one of those bigger nudges to guide you on your next step, that inspiration, that intuition that's telling you, go for it. Now's the time to take that job, to make that move, to make this change, to quit your job, to move somewhere, to leave this relationship, to take a chance with this person, to start something totally new and different. The big call that really is when you are on your life path, your soul path, and you're at that juncture, and it's time to completely change direction. This can happen at any time, yet it often happens once we've already begun our spiritual path. Of course, when we first get on our spiritual path, that often involves one of the bigger callings, right? I know that when I first started having what I call my spiritual opening, becoming more open and aware to spiritual concepts, ideas, that I started making bigger choices and decisions, like a big trip to the UK, which I spoke of, which is where I really feel that a lot of my inspiration and guidance from ancestors led me to this work with Women Waken, to work with women, to bring forth their thoughts, their ideas, their presence in our world that is so needed with the divine feminine. Yet after that, once you're on that path, as you keep moving forward, that's when some bigger calls can come where it's actually like, okay, now is decision-making time, making big moves. I've had quite a few people reach out to me, as I offer at the end of each episode, that if you find me on Instagram and send me a DM and add me, that I'll pull a card for you. And I always ask people, do you have a certain, are you inquiry or certain guidance that you're looking for at this time that I can inquire about in the cards? And a few people have said, I feel that I'm being called to work with women or work with children or leave my current partnership or move. So I feel like more and more people are starting to get these calls because they're on their soul's path. We're at this huge juncture in the history of humanity. We're at this big turning point. So more of us are going to get this big call from the universe, from our guidance, from spirit, that's going to be like, hey, this may sound crazy, but now's the time to do something crazy, to make outlandish, wild decisions, not, irresponsible ones necessarily, but just the bigger ones that maybe you never thought you could do, but something feels right about it. So to give you a bit of insight into my situation, how this relates to this episode in my life. So the day I release this, I'm releasing this episode on, it's September 18th, because I am taking off. I'm leaving Bend, Oregon, where I've been for 10 months now, since November 1st of 2022. And I'm getting back on the road as a nomad, and I'm headed east. If you had asked me even just a few months ago, a year ago, if I would do that, I would say, I don't think so. I don't think I would go that direction. I don't know what there would be for me out there. Also, I have thoroughly enjoyed living in Bend. I was pretty much guided to come here. I didn't realize it. I was just looking for a place to sort of hunker down for a while last winter, to really focus on my podcast, to focus on my work. I know I've spoken to this in several episodes, so this might be a recap for a lot of you, but it still relates to my current plan, so I'm tying it in there. And so I found this beautiful cabin just south of Bend, and I had the most magical winter there, and I fell in love with it. And then I had the opportunity to move actually into the city of Bend back in May, which was also guided. So again, because this is the big call, I'll share with you some of my synchronicities so that you can kind of get a feel for what they can come across as, what they can be like in case they come your way. So I was actually, this is in January of this year, the beginning of the year, I had a lease from November until the end of March in my little cabin in the woods south of Bend in a place called Sun River. And my friend came to visit from Seattle, my dear friend Sid, who was a guest on my podcast about sustainable and communal housing. intentional housing. And we were going for a walk, and I told her, you know, when I'm starting to think that I might move on at the end of March, you know, it's getting into springtime, the snow will be gone. Maybe I'll start, you know, traveling again. Maybe I'll just kind of drive around. I really want to see Montana, Wyoming, that area. And she said, oh, really? Like, I thought you liked it here. And I said, I do, but I just, you know, I'm just kind of thinking maybe I've seen what there is to see here. And I went home and I was listening to a tarot reading online, which I often do. And the reader literally stopped. She, you know, was starting her reading, and she stopped and she said, hold on. She said, I'm getting a message for somebody out there. And she said, wherever you are, don't leave. Stay there. There's something for you. There's still something left here. There's some gifts and some magic. Stay where you are. And I took it to heart. I felt like she was speaking right to me, because that same evening, my friend Sid took me out to dinner. And she said, oh, I have a friend who lives in Bend. He's been here about 20 years. His name was Joe. And he went to dinner with us, and he knew everybody and everything in Bend. And we became fast friends. And he started introducing me to people in the music scene because he's an amazing musician. He's been in several bands. That's how I started taking drum lessons. I started drumming. He also worked at the local radio station. So he introduced me to people there, and I got a chance to have a talk show on a radio station, which I never thought would happen. So just like that reading said, I decided to stay, and magical gifts came about that I didn't realize. And I met new friends and new people, and it was just incredible. So you can imagine that as these things were coming about, I thought, well, I guess I'll just stay put. Like, things are pretty good in Bend. It feels very fruitful. I'm making great connections. It's absolutely stunningly beautiful here. If you haven't been to Bend, Oregon, it is a oasis in this country. It has all, it's known for being like an outdoors paradise. You know, there's hiking and biking and, you know, rafting and paddleboarding and kayaking and snowboarding. There's all the things. So it's a great spot. Beautiful and very sacred, very powerful, because it's also surrounded by mountains that are non-active volcanoes. There's, of course, Crater Lake, which was a giant volcano that blew up and then fell into itself basically and created what is now Crater Lake. So it's a powerful, powerful hub. If you feel called here, it's probably because you're at a time of transition, is what I realized. I didn't know it, but basically living on a bed of lava, which is what the city is essentially built on, it's pretty powerful stuff. So I thought, hey, you know, I'm going to ask if I can extend. I had a 5-month lease in my current place as well, from April until September, which it now is. And I thought, I'm going to ask if we can just do a full year lease, and I can stay all the way through the winter into the next spring, and then I can decide what I want to do. And as soon as I sort of put that out into the energy, I got a giant no, a big stop sign, a big, this is not for you. You need to move on, was the message I got. And I couldn't believe it. And so for those who are asking, like, well, what do you mean you got a message? Like, where did this come from? Did someone call you? Like, did it like fall out of the sky? Did it like show up in your tea? It came in different ways, right? The way that messages do. So this ties into the theme of this episode. Taking the big call means opening yourself to this guidance. This message came to me first, again, through a tarot reading I was watching, where that same night where I was like, I'm going to ask to extend my lease. I'm going to buy a whole drum set. I'm going to start working at, you know, do the radio show for a year. I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing. I was making all these plans to stay. And this reader pulled a card and it said, if you do not leave, you will be forced out. And I paused for a second because I heard that. I was like, oh, isn't that interesting? And as we sometimes do, I kind of brushed it off. I was like, well, you know, whatever. But that evening I decided, well, maybe I'll look into it myself and pull some cards for myself. And I got 2 cards. One was for the deck that I'm going to use today at the end of this episode, which is the Wisdom of the Oracle. And I literally got the card that says time to go. And it essentially said that you've learned and achieved and experienced everything you were meant to in this current setting, in this current place, and it's time to move on. And of course, for those who are into Oracle and tarot cards, you know, when you're like, okay, well, let's just see if that's true. Let's try another one. So I tried from another deck, my Shaman Oracle deck. And I got the same message. It was a certain card. I can't remember which one, but it was in reverse. And the reverse message was literally almost the same thing. It said, the longer you stay where you are, you'll delay your progress. You've gotten what you needed. You've learned the lesson. It's time to move on. So I took it to heart, and sure enough, messages just kept coming in. And so again, speaking to where do you see these messages? I heard it through song. I would see, various signs out when I was driving or moving, just things like other messages, which is like, don't stay, time to go, stuff like that. And I just realized that, okay, all right. But then I was sort of like, all right, universe, you're telling me where to go. Well, where do I go? I don't know where to go from here. And as soon as I put that out, I was getting into my car. This was after, I know I've spoken of this. So again, I apologize if this is repetitive and you guys are hearing me tell my whole spiel again, but it's relevant to this because I want everyone listening to know that this comes through for all of us. We each have access to this guidance, and we each will get at times in our life that bigger call for these bigger changes. So I had just done a healing session with this beautiful practitioner here in Bend, which they have many of, a healing energetic practitioner. And I brought it up with her. I said, listen, I was going to stay in Bend, but now I'm being told to leave. I don't know where to go. And we were just kind of chatting about it and exploring it. And I got in my car, and the song Empire State of Mind by Jay-Z was on, which says, New York, New York. And I thought, oh no, I'm not going to go to New York. Like, that's expensive. That's crowded. That sounds challenging. So again, I sort of was like, well, I'll consult different avenues to explore this because I don't think I'm supposed to go to New York. And so I reached out to, I work with an astrocartographer. That is someone who is an astrologer, and they also offer readings on ley lines throughout the earth that when they compare them with your chart, they can see where some of the most auspicious places are for you to be at different times. So I reached out and I said, hey, I wanted to check in because last year she had given me some suggestions about where I should be for my birthday, which is another offering that she has. And I also asked, I'm planning to get back on the road I've been given the message that I need to continue on my travels. I'm not sure where. So do you see any place that would be advantageous for me? And within 5 minutes, she emailed me back and she said, are you open to relocating to New York? So I knew that that was where I was being guided to. And I even pulled a card for that because, of course, I was kind of taken aback. I was like, am I really going to get on the road and drive all the way to the East Coast and explore New England and go there? Because I hadn't really thought about it. And when I asked about going to that area, I got the 10 of Pentacles, which is a lot about your legacy, right? It's about everything coming together, doing your soul's work, your true work, your highest work, connecting with family, having a home, having abundance in your finances, finding avenues that lead you to your greatest success. So I knew that I was being guided there for a reason. And since then, I've had some wild things happen. I met with somebody who I was on their podcast. Their name is Caleb Nelson. He has the Naked Sunday podcast, a fabulous podcast that I was a guest on. I'm actually going to record with him this Friday for my podcast. And a friend introduced me, Kayla Von Egdom, who was also a guest on my show. We did a 3-episode special on women's sexuality the end of last year. And she just happened to reach out to me and she's like, you need to connect with this guy, Caleb. He was just on my show. I was on his. I think you'd really like him. So Caleb and I met and we hit it off to be on each other's shows. And turns out he lived in Saratoga Springs, New York, which is upstate New York. And that same astrocartographer had told me the greater New York and Vermont area looks the best for you, looks very fortuitous for you. Not necessarily like New York City, which is what we all think about, right? That's what came to mind when I heard that song. But there's much more to New York State and to the New England area than just the major cities that we know of. So he was from Saratoga Springs, New York. And he's like, yeah, it's actually kind of becoming a wellness hub and spirituality hub. And I was like, isn't that interesting? So I started planning my trip. I'm going to make my way from Bend over to the East Coast. I have a few friends, family members I'll see, and I'm going to go check out Saratoga Springs. Another side note, also this pertains to taking the call and realizing that the universe is guiding you. I took a trip to Coos Bay on the Oregon coast back in May. Again, I think I've shared about this. I apologize if you've already heard it. And right before that, I had read the book, The Law of Attraction by Esther and Jerry Hicks. Great book. They are channelers. They channel an entity, a non-physical entity called Abraham, speaks about the law of attraction and how in a lot of ways we are creating our own reality and how we can begin to tap into that and work with it to create the life that we want. And in their book, they talk about their original inspiration was a book called Seth Speaks, which is one of the original channeling books. So on my trip, I go to a crystal store in Coos Bay. I walk in and there's a discount table in the store. And wouldn't you know, right in the center of the table is that book, Seth Speaks. I was ready for it. I was ready for the information that's held in that book, which is very powerful, very esoteric ideas about the nature of reality, of consciousness, about our true experience here and how we can begin to kind of tap into that. So I read the whole book. I couldn't put it down. I loved it, read it in the past few months. Just a week or so ago, I finished it and I started right back at the beginning and I took the time to read the copyright page and the author's info. And it said, the author, I can't remember her name. I'll put the link in there. I think it's Laura, maybe. And it said, the author was born in Saratoga Springs, New York, which probably was back in like the 50s or 60s, which Saratoga Springs is only like 30,000 people. You can imagine how small it was back then. So for her to be from there and for me to have heard of that place felt like further confirmation. So that's what I'm going to check out. I'm sharing this story because this was my example of taking the big call, right? I thought I had found somewhere to finally put down roots. I mean, I've had roots before and I've only really been a nomad for about 2 years now. And I really do enjoy it. And I did, even aside from the big call, I felt in my heart and intuition that there was more for me to explore, that I wasn't done with my vagabond life, with my nomad life, with my gypsy life. So it was really just confirming what I already kind of had a suspicion of, but I was doubting it. I was saying, well, maybe I'm supposed to stay in Bend, because I do also not want to force something, right? I don't also want to run away from a good thing. Sometimes we can tend to do that. I know I can tend to do that, where I'll say, well, this is pretty good, but what else is out there? So I was trying to be open to the idea of, well, maybe I'm meant to stay here. So this is why I'm, again, speaking to this. If you have that question, put it out there. If you're like me and you've moved to a new place and you say, is this it for me? Am I meant to stay here? Put the question out to the universe and say, okay, universe, I'm going to take steps to stay here because I feel like maybe I'm meant to. If I'm not meant to, can you please guide me? Can you show me? And you will very quickly be given the guidance that's meant for you if you keep your awareness open. Things people say, people you meet, right? Like Caleb. Also, I started meeting several people who were either originally from or lived in New York, in the greater New York area, Rochester, Albany, Saratoga Springs, places I'd never heard of. And now all of a sudden, I'm meeting all these people who are from there. So look for the synchronicities. Synchronicities are always a sign that you're on the right path, that you're following the breadcrumbs that are leading you on your soul's path towards your true destiny, your true calling. Right? And that's what I call destiny. Everybody has free will, yet there is a plan that your soul had in place when it came here. There is a path that your soul would love to embark on because it's going towards your higher purpose, what you uniquely are able to share and do in this life. We all can have many different variations of life, but we can really hit it, right? We can really hit the nail on the head if we take certain steps and follow a certain path to truly shine our brightest. So that's why it can be advantageous to listen for the signs and to take that risk and to take the big call and say, wow, this is not what I expected. I did not expect to be guided to quit my job of 20 years and start a completely new profession, which is a really common thing. I hear that often from guests on my podcast. They'll say, I was 20, 30 years deep into a career in finance or law or as a doctor, And then suddenly I just felt this inclination to quit and leave it all behind and become a healer, a speaker, a writer, a coach. And it's because your soul's coming through. Because so many of the avenues, the, contemporary, typical avenues that we take are, be a doctor, be a lawyer, be a nurse, be a therapist, be a teacher. It's very well-run paths, but we are truly at a time, and I've spoken to this as well, of blazing new trails. I remember saying once years ago when someone was like, Whitney, what do you want to do with your life? And I was like, I don't know. I don't really know if I like anything on the menu. A fellow therapist said that to me once. She was like, yeah, I became a therapist because it was the best thing on the menu, right? You're at like kind of a crappy restaurant. And you're like, well, the garden salad doesn't sound great, but like it's the best thing they got. And therapy is beautiful. It's an amazing thing. Yet there's so many more outlets and ways of life and means of earning a living that we can have than the offerings we have now. But we need innovators. We need rogue, rebel souls. My friend, a gal I had on the podcast recently, Candace Rebello, whose last name actually means rebel. I think I might have spoken to this to another episode as well. We were talking about how we both felt drawn to the concept of being a rebel angel or a divine rebel, because that's what this time is. And it's the women who are going to be these rebels, because a lot of women have these rebel souls, and rebellion just means throwing off the chains of contemporary situations, society, what we're told we're supposed to be, and saying, I think there's more to me. I think I have more to give. I think I have more to do. There's this yearning and burning inside of me to do something, and I can't tell it to be quiet anymore. So I'm going to be a bit of a rebel, and I'm going to make a big change. I'm going to take the big call, and I'm going to see what's waiting for me down that path, because it's a powerful thing. It's a powerful thing. So again, look out for the synchronicities. Keep your ears open when you meet a new person that someone just happens to introduce you to. Maybe they have a message for you. Remember that the universe speaks through everything around you. It speaks through the books that you read, the songs that you hear, the movies that you watch, the people that you meet, the conversations that you have, the podcasts you listen to. Your higher power is speaking to you, your guides, your angels, the universe itself, whatever you want to call it. Your future self has messages for you, but you got to listen, and you got to put out there your inquiry, right? Hey, am I meant to stay here? Am I meant to continue on this path? Is there a different path for me? Put it out and it shall respond. You just got to open yourself to the little messages. And then one day you might get that big call that feels like bam, like a lightning bolt. It's just like, whoa, really? I meant to leave everything behind and do something totally different? That seems crazy. But is it? Is it so crazy? Isn't this life meant to be crazy and fun and exciting? Unfortunately, many people will say, no, we have to stay safe. We have to stay structured. We have to stay in the box. I say, forget the box. Let's get out of the box. Let's create new avenues. Let's blaze new trails for others that come, so that others can have more fulfilling, joyous lives. Because as I speak to a lot on this show, the main reason that I speak and share these thoughts that some people might not appreciate, but I don't care anymore, because someone's going to appreciate them. And the reason I do it is because I believe that we are meant for so much more than how we're living now. And we're absolutely meant for more joy and excitement and enthusiasm about ourselves and our lives. We have so much potential, unique potential, not just run of the mill, just doing what we're supposed to do day in, day out, following the contemporary things. And I'm not knocking that. I've had people tell me they have so much joy from their job. They have so much joy from their life, with their family and their home and their routine. And that is sacred and that is blessed. But for those who have that little rebel heart, like I do, maybe this message will reach you and touch you. and inspire you to open yourself to guidance, to open yourself to taking that call should it come, to looking for the signs and the avenues that it may arrive in. And it could even come to you through your clairs, right? I've done an episode on the clairs, which are the different psychic abilities. You might just hear something, hear some guidance. I've spoken to this before, but when I first started out in nomad life, I was sitting at a table just like this back in the Bay Area, California. And I was on about like my 6th client of the day. I'd started my own private practice virtually. And I was just thinking, man, like, I feel like I'm just sitting at this table all day in the same space. And I thought maybe I could take this on the road. Maybe I could like switch up my environment. And I got up to go to the bathroom between clients, and I heard as clear as day that clairaudience, which is clear hearing, you're getting your psychic information through your hearing. And I heard before the end of the year. And this was in August. And I took off on my journeys in October 2021, 2 months after that. It can come through visions. You can see something. So clairvoyance is sight, but it can be like a literal sign, right? You can see like a sign on a billboard. You can see a sign on the side of the road. You can see a sign anywhere. You can find a fortune cookie, which I speak of a lot and I love. Which, by the way, I just saw this one, which is on my table. I always have fortunes around. So this is for somebody. Your next decision will deliver unexpected happiness. Bam. I felt called to grab that, and it's for a reason. And I mean, talk about some guidance to take the big call, making that decision to saying, you know what, I'm going to take a risk. Okay. I hope that was helpful. With that said, the other reason I wanted to bring that up, I will be hitting the road. September 15th is when I depart from Bend. I'm going all the way up to northern Washington, out through Montana, through South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, into Canada, over to New Hampshire, Vermont, New York, bam, bam, bam. I'm going to hit up all the states I haven't visited yet. I've done 35 of the 50. I will be almost to 50 aside from Alaska once I finish these travels, which in and of itself is an exciting reason to take this trip. So who knows what awaits me, but I know that I'll have fun adventures, but I think there's something there. I believe I'm being guided there for a reason, which is also, I'm sharing this. Stay tuned. I'm going to share more about my travels. The other thing I'm kind of using this opportunity as is a bit of a surrender experiment. I am a Virgo, which is Virgo season. And when you listen to this, I will have just turned 38 on September 12th. And it's very hard for me not to want to plan everything and know everything in advance and organize, but I'm trying to surrender a bit. Because again, when you take that big call, you are surrendering to the guidance, higher guidance. And you're saying, okay, I had some plans in place. I had some ideas, but you're telling me that you have a higher plan for me. You're telling me that there's something better than even my wildest dreams. So I'm going to follow it. So that's going to be this trip for me, is surrendering and following the guidance, following those little nudges that say, you should go here today. You should go there. And by the way, you don't need to be on a big old cross-country trip to do this. If you get a call, I've spoken to this before, but hey, go to the park today. Hey, go to that store today. Go see this movie tonight. And you think it's just you being like, oh, maybe I should do this. But it often is sort of that clear audience or clear cognizance, which is clear knowing, which is almost like your future self kind of reiterating something your future self already knows, but it's like popping up in real time. Because maybe you might meet somebody at the movies. Maybe you might find a certain book somewhere if you go to a certain bookstore. So wherever you are, be aware, keep yourself open to the guidance. Keep yourself available to that big call and see if you're ready to make that choice and see what wonders await you. Okay. Now I'm going to pull a oracle card for you because this is the Divine Feminine solo episode / life update by Whitney. All right, let's see what we get. A card for the highest good and greatest guidance of everyone listening. Oh my gosh, how beautiful. This is so perfect. We got card number 18, serendipity. Of course we did, because what is following the signs but serendipity? What is finding a book that you just read about in a random crystal shop but serendipity? What is meeting somebody who happens to live in the town that you might be guided towards but serendipity? Okay, I'll stop. Serendipity, coincidences, synchronicity, all one and the same. It means you're on the right path. And this card is coming out because spirit guides are listening. You're like, yes, yes. Everybody listen. This is a time for following your guidance. This is a time for higher callings, for divine rebels, divine angels, rebel angels, all these people to come forward. Because the time is now for big changes and for taking the call, taking risks, making that leap of faith. Because serendipity will guide you and spirit's got your back. All right, so let's go ahead and read the definition for serendipity. Serendipity, card 18, opportunity allied with readiness, the awareness of synchronicity, luck and good fortune appearing as signs, symbols, a magical alignment of events. You guys, is this literally not reiterating what I just said? We're totally synced up. The oracle's message: you've stepped into alignment with the greater good, where your dreams and the collective dream resonate in exquisite harmony. Now is the time for luck and preparation to meet and create miracles that you could never have planned all by yourself. Literally said that. Keep in mind that you are a channel for providence right now, as a higher energy uses you as a force on behalf of the whole world. You guys, this is why we're taking that bigger call. It's not just about us, it's for the whole world. The more of us that pop off and open to our soul's path, we impact the world for the highest good. Your fortune becomes everyone's fortune. Everything you bring into being now will leave a wondrous legacy for others in the future. Your service to the world is being supported at this time. Expect the unexpected. Isn't that fun? And smile, for spirit loves you so very much. Prosperity message. You are in the right place at the right time. Be grateful, for the stars are aligned in your favor and fortune is smiling on you. Victory and success are yours. The choices you have made in the past have prepared you for the opportunities now before you. This is your lucky moment. The timing is perfect. We're all headed into a beautiful period, everybody. That serendipity is on your side. Follow those synchronicities, follow those coincidences, follow the signs. Keep your ears and your eyes and your heart open to your higher guidance. Just to close, another note is that as I'm on the road, I'm going to do my very best to keep up the schedule of 2 solo episodes and 1 guest episode every week. I'm going to have to see what the pace is like, if I can keep it up. I might have to just do audio only. I might not have time to edit and prepare videos for YouTube. Either way, I'll definitely be sending out content, keeping it going. I am so excited to have gained some traction with this podcast, to be building an audience, to be speaking to people and hopefully inspiring them and bringing us all together to this path where we're all looking to impact and help and heal and inspire the entire world through finding our own joy and true purpose. That's what I want to do. So I'm going to keep speaking to you all as long as you all keep having interest in listening. So again, I will do my best. They might be a little bit shorter episodes. I might do some solo episodes that are just updates on my travels of taking the call, of following my guidance, of the surrender experiment, if you will. So please stay tuned. If you'd like to know more, you can follow me on Instagram, Women Waken. I'll have updates, pictures, all of that, and feel free to message me. All right, everybody, thank you so much for listening. Have a beautiful day. Take care.